Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's session. Today we'll go for Chemistry Paper 4, Variant 2. Question 1. Using numbers only, state the percentage of nitrogen is actually the highest percentage, 78%. Typical operating of contact process is 450 degrees C. Number of metal in period 3, we refer back to the periodic table. Period 3, 1, 2, 3. How many metals? 1 metal, 2 metal, 3 metals. So we have 3 metals here. Number of halogen, which are gases at room temperature. Halogen is group 7. Gas is 1, 2. At room temperature, these two are gases. A typical temperature for fermentation of aqueous glucose to form alcohol. This is around 25 to 30. So let's say you can write 30 degrees C. Number of unbranched structural isomer of C4H8. So the first double bond we can put here. Second double bond we can put here. So the answer is just 2 because they do not accept branch situation. So you do not go to this situation. Just 2. Number of covalent bond in one molecule of ethanol. Ethanol have 2C, 1 OH, then others OH. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. H. Number of carbon atom in one molecule of propylbutanoic. So here have 4C, here have 3C, so total 7C. 2. The question is about covalent compound. State what is meant by covalent bond. For example, CH4. Covalent bond is actually sharing a pair of electrons between these two atoms. Must mention is 2 atoms. Next, chlorine oxide is a simple molecule with covalent bond. State what is meant by 1 in the chlorine 1 oxides. Oxidation number of chlorine is positive 1. That's why they write a 1 there to represent the oxidation number of the transition element. Part 2. Complete the dot and cross diagram for the molecule of chlorine 1 oxide. So we know chlorine is group 7. Group 7, they need 1 more electron, so they need to share out 1 electron. Oxygen is group 6. They need 2 more electrons. That's why they need to share out 2 electrons. So after they share out the 2 electrons, they will have balance 4 electrons. That is 1, 2, 3, 4. For chlorine, after they share out 1 electron, they'll have 6 more electrons. Same go to this. Then part 3. Explain in terms of structure of bonding why Cl2O boils at low temperature and does not thermal decompose into this. So first thing we explain about low boiling temperature, because when we talk about the boiling point, we need to know this is a simple covalent situation. So in between this molecule and this molecule, there are weak intermolecular attraction. So this weak intermolecular attraction, they need a small amount of energy to overcome. That's why boiling point can be low. But why they unable to decompose to this and this? Because to decompose, they need to break the bond between the atoms. And this is a covalent bond, which is strong. So that's why you need to expand based on these two. This is how you write it. Give 2 reasons why liquid Cl2O is a poor conductor of electricity. Liquid conduct electricity if it have ions or electrons. They can freely move, then they can conduct electricity, but they don't have. So that's why you just write they don't have ions and don't have mobile electrons. These 2 reasons, that's why it's unable to bring the electric flow. Part C, carbon and silicon oxide both exist as giant covalent structure. Name a giant covalent structure of carbon which conduct electricity. Graphite. Because graphite, they will have one freely moving electrons layer. That's why it can conduct electricity. 2. Identify the particle responsible for conduction of electricity in this covalent structure of carbons. I just mentioned it's the electron that can freely moving. Part 3. Silicon oxides contain silicon atom and oxygen atom. Silicon atom is group 4, oxygen is group 6. Show part of the giant covalent structure of silicon oxide. So we know oxygen in it to share 2 electrons. So that's why they will have 2 bonds. So if you have 2 bonds, it's oxygen. Then for silicon, you need to share 4 electrons. That's why I have 4 bonds as silicon. Just like that. Question 3, the question is about electrolysis. Complete the definition of electrolysis by filling the missing words. Electrolysis is the decomposition of ionic compound. If it's not ionic, it's covalent, then impossible when molten or aqueous solution. By the passage of electric current, sometimes they will directly give you 2 lines and ask you to write the full definition. So make sure you remember how to write the definitions. Decomposition of ionic compound in molten or aqueous solution state by a passage of electric current. So these 3 points are very important. Part B, electrolysis of aqueous copper sulfate is carried out using apparatus shown in this figure. The electrodes are made from platinum. Platinum graphites are all inert electrode, means they won't involve in the reaction. State whether the mass of cathode increase, decrease, or remain unchanged. So every time we see this question, I will list down cathode, anode. So this is aqueous copper sulfate. We know we have the cation copper sulfate as an ion, and then since it's aqueous, so it have H plus and OH minus. In normal situation, we will choose copper because it's the less reactive situation, and OH. So this is the balance equations. State whether the mass of cathode will increase, decrease, or remain the same. So cathode will form more copper metal. That's why confirm it increase. Next, describe the change in appearance of the electrolyte, which means this copper sulfate. When platinum electrodes are used, what will cause the electrolyte to have appearance change? We talk about the copper ion, because copper ion itself will bring blue color. So when the copper ion is reducing, because it forms copper metal, then the blue color will become paler. Of course, you can say it becomes colorless, because if Cu2 plus completely used up, then it becomes colorless. Number 3, describe what is seen at anode when platinum electrode is used. So we will see oxygen release. But don't tell me oxygen release because you can't define what is the gas that's released. So you can only tell me it have bubbles. Then ask you to write ionic half equation of anode. We just copy this part. 3 marks. See, the electrolysis is repeated using copper electrode. So if copper electrode is special electrode that react at anode, cathode here will remain unchanged. But for anode, I don't care what is the anion because copper metal will reduce back to copper ion. So C1, they ask you to state whether the mass of the cathode, what will be the changes. So no matter it's used graphite or copper, in cathode, the mass is still increased because copper ion will change back to copper metal. So it's just increased. Describe the change in appearance if any of the electrolyte. Just now we already mentioned color change is based on the copper ion concentration. So here the cathode, they will use copper ion, but the anode, they will produce copper ion. So that's why at last copper ion concentration unchanged. The aluminum is extracted from the purified ore of electrolysis, named ore of aluminium is bauxite. The substance added to the process to reduce the operating temperature, so to make it possible to melt in a lower temperature, cryolite. I explain why the anode need to continually replaced by the process. Here we know cathode anode, aluminum oxides, we have these. Obviously, anode here will keep produce oxygen. This oxygen will react with anode. The anode we are using graphite, which is carbon, so it will keep forming carbon dioxide. So you can see the carbon will become thinner and thinner, so we must replace them. Question number 4. Chromium is element with atomic number of 24 in the periodic table. The main ore of chromium is chromite, which contains these. This one react with carbon, complete the equation of these reactions. So we have iron 1 here, iron 1 here, so both okay. Cr have 2 here, Cr have 2, so okay. O on the left have 4, and then have 4 more C. So the only chance that we can have is 4 carbon monoxide, dense balance. So it's just one disadvantage of extracting chromium by reacting chromite with carbon, which is this. So what is the problem if we want to take chromium from here? Can you see? There is iron also. We need to separate chromium from iron. Next, chromium can be mixed with nickel or other elements to form stainless steel. Name the type of substance formed when the metals is mixed with other element, alloy. This thing is a compound containing chromium. The negative ion of this is this, which is here. State the sum of oxidation number in this ion. So the question already mentioned is this. So the sum of oxidation number is just -2. The oxidation number of O in this is -2. Ask you to determine the oxidation number of chromium. So the chromium, we assume it as X. We have 2 chromium. We plus this 7 oxygen, which is -2. At last, it will become -2. Then we can count. -14 come here will become +14. So it's +6. Number 3, when this is heated in the following reaction occurs, calculate the volume of nitrogen produced in RTP in cm cube when this amount of this is heated using the following step. They give you the molecular mass of this. As you find the mole, the number of mole is just the mass divided by molecular mass, 0.005. Determine the number of mole of nitrogen formed. So if 0.005 mole, and then the ratio between them is 1:1. So here also 0.005 mole. Next, calculate the volume of nitrogen formed. So if we have the number of mole, we just times with 24 dm cube, refer to the back. They say volume is 24 dm cube. But here is in cm cube, so we convert dm cube to cm cube, 3 more 0. Then you key in calculator, you get answer is 120 cm cube. Question 5. Alkaline metals are reactive metals. State the group number of alkaline metal is group 1. Identify the alkaline metals which have the highest melting point, which means the strongest metallic bond. So strongest metallic bond have closest nucleus with the electron C. So of course it's lithium. Has the highest density. So we know when we're going down the group, it's more and more dense. So here is Fr, francium. Which one have the lowest reactivity? We know that group 1, they wish to remove 1 electron. So when they're going down the group, it's further and further away for the valence electron. So that's why the valence electron is easier to be removed, because the extraction forces comes from the nucleus is further and further. So that's why the lowest reactivity, which the one that don't like to remove the electron, is lithium compared to the others. Lithium is the least reactivity. That's why in our school, usually we don't have the very reactive elements in secondary school. Burns in a lilac flame. Lilac, you need to know, is potassium. And then it's found in fertilizer, because fertilizer usually is NPK. So here obviously is potassium. Sodium sulfite is an ionic compound. Complete the table to show the electronic configurations of the ions in sodium sulfate. So sodium, we already know 11 electron, 2, 8, 1. One more electrons will go to sulfur. Here give one, here give one. So here remove one electron, become positive one. Here also positive one. So here receive 2 electron, become 2 negative. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Group 6 for sulfur. D. Rubidium has only 2 naturally occurring atoms, which is this and this. State the terms given to these naturally occurring atoms of rubidium. They have different mass, then they are isotopes. Part 2. Complete table 5.1 to show the number of proton, neutron, electrons in the atom and ion of rubidium shown. This compare with periodic table that given at the back. So we know 85 situation, 37 proton. So when it do not contain any charge, so the number of proton must be equal to number of electron. Total mass is 85, so the neutron will be the balance of it, 48 of neutron. Then how about rubidium positive charge? When rubidium positive charge is still contain the same number of proton, but because it's positive charge, it have reduced by 1 electron. That's why it will be positive. Then how about neutron? The neutron is removing the proton, 50 neutrons here. Part 2. The relative atomic mass of rubidium is 85.5. Determine the relative abundance of 85. Express your answers as a percentage. So we assume 85 is X over 100. And then how about another one? Another one is 87. So 87 would be the balance percentage. So we use this. This will become 85.5. At last I will get this thing I drew here. Negative 150. So we confirm X is 75. 75%. Question 6. Ethene is the first member of family of similar compound which contain alkene functional group. Say the term for family or similar compound which contain the same functional group. We call them homologous series. Then determine the difference in relative molecular mass between these and the next member. So the next member we know is C3H6 because we know all ethene have general formula of CnH2n. So the mass difference by CH2, C is 12, H is 1, so I have 2 times 1, so the total mass is 14. Then write the simple equation of complete combustion of this. So when it's combustion, it's always need oxygen and it's complete, so it's confirmed from CO2 and H2O. Then we do balancing. We start from C first. Here have 2C, so here times 2. Carbon done. Here have 4H. So here already have 2I times 2 will become 4. So H also complete. Then at last here have 4 oxygen, here have 2 oxygen. So total have 6 oxygen. So here need to times 3. Then a full balance equation form. D. C2H4 react with steam to form ethanol. The process happens in a closed system and the reaction reach equilibrium. The condition for this process is 300 degrees C, 60 atmospheric pressure. Catalyst is this. Complete this table, show the effect, if any, on the concentration of C2H4. When the following changes to the conditions applied. So they talk about the concentration of C2H4. When temperature decreases, the exothermic forward reaction will cause heat release to the surrounding. When temperature decreases, they happy to release heat to surrounding. That's why they favor forward reaction. So the concentration of the reactant is decreasing. When C2H5OH is removed, so the balancing is disturbed, they need to shift back to the right to balance it back. So that's why the concentration of alcohol decrease. How about pressure is increased? When pressure is increased, we need to compare the gas molecule. On the left-hand side, we have 2 mole, while right-hand side have 1 mole. When pressure is increased, it favors lower number of molecules. So that's why, again, it shifts to the right. So here is decrease again. Last, a more effective catalyst is used. When catalyst is used, rate is increased for both forward and backward reaction. So that's why no change for the equilibrium. Explain in terms of collision theory why the rate of forward reaction increase when the temperature increase. So remember, when we talk about the rate, temperature increase will cause the kinetic energy of particles increase. When the kinetic energy of particle increase, it will cause 2 situations. First situation is the frequency of collision between the particles increase. And also, this is the specific terms for temperature. It will cause a higher proportional of collision achieve the activation energy. Compound B has a display formula of these. Deduce the molecular formula of compound B. Molecular formula means how many C, how many H, how many O. So we just count. We have 5 carbon, 6 O, we have 4. So that's why this is the molecular formula. State why compound B is unsaturated, because it have carbon-carbon bond that is not single bond. No matter it's double bond, triple bond, as long as any of the carbon-carbon is not single bond, then it's unsaturated. Draw the structure of one repeat unit of polymer formed when compound B undergoes additional polymerization. So when additional polymerization, we need to make sure the C double bond C is in the middle. I draw it here. Everything above I put up. And then everything down I put down. Here up I have CH3. Here down I have COOH. Then the middle part, double bond, change it to single bond, and then left, right, I open for 1 more. So this is the repeated unit when it forms polymer. Number 4, explain why 1 mole of compound B react with 2 mole of NaOH. Because it has 2 COOH. That's why it can react with 2 mole of NaOH. Then the way that you explain is, so compound B has 2 carboxylic acid groups. Calculate the volume of NaOH react with this amount of compound B. If you have this number of compound B, it will react with 0.2 mole of NaOH, because 2 mole of NaOH react with 1 mole of compound B. So number of mole equals to mV over 1000. Concentration times volume over 1000. This is the formula to relate concentration, volume, and also number of moles. So this is the end of today's paper. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share my video. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment here. See you in the next class. Bye-bye.